Welcome in. It is Countdown to Magic, the road edition. Jake Chapman here with you. And still, we're testing what this all looks like. Right now, you are seeing the pregame warmups, the Target Center in Minnesota as the Magic play game number 4 of 5 out on the road. A nice win last night over the New Orleans Pelicans. We're going to take some of you guys' questions in the comments section on the YouTube page. And of course, you can catch the game tonight 8 o'clock on FanDuel, or you can hear me on 96.9 The Game and AM 740. We'll have the pregame show on both the television and the radio side beginning at 7:30. Last night in New Orleans, good dub. A 36-point lead at one point in the third quarter. 113-93 was the final score of that basketball game. The Magic got outstanding performances from both Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner. 14 of 22 from the field. For P, he had 34 points, 11 rebounds, 4 assists, 10th 30-point game of the season. Also had 4 steals in that one. Franz was 11 of 17. He was super efficient as well. Finished with 27.6 rebounds and 5 assists. And Pelicans had a little charge late in the third quarter into the fourth. They were able to get that 36-point lead down to 15, but the Magic had already built up such a nice advantage that they were able to cruise to a 20-point win. You had Cory Joseph in the starting lineup last night. He chipped in 12 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists. He'll be back in the starting lineup again here tonight. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope was good last night as well. He finished with 12 points on 5 of 10 shooting, and the Magic able to rectify some of the problems that we saw in that Houston game earlier in the week on Monday night. The offensive rebounds were not an issue last night. Basically a stalemate as far as the rebounding goes, but Orlando knocking down 13 threes, and anytime this Magic offense is able to generate 13 three-pointers, 39% from three-point range, you're probably sitting in a pretty good spot. And that was last night the 40th time going back to the beginning of last season, believe it or not, that the Magic have held an opponent under 100 points, which is tops in the NBA. Second place in that regard, 39 times since the beginning of last season, the Minnesota Timberwolves have held an opponent under 100 points. So it should be a good defensive matchup here tonight as we get set for the Minnesota Timberwolves. But that was certainly an impressive outing from both Paolo and Franz last night. The first time in 30 years that the Magic have had 2 scorers with 20 points at halftime of a basketball game. So they were on another level last night. They were fantastic. And hopefully they're able to repeat that again here tonight. We've got some post-game sound from the fellas after that win last night in New Orleans. Let's take a listen.
I thought we played really good defense. All game. Obviously, there's going to be stretches where they go on runs, but I thought for the most part our communication was good, our effort was really good, followed the game plan really well, and I think that helped us, get a rhythm on offense.
Just say ultra aggressive. I think everybody was locked in on the defensive side. We know they had Zion, Trey Murphy, McCollum, guys that can go off if you let them. So we was trying to be locked in on that end, and it led to us, getting runouts, getting in transition, jump shots falling. So it was just I think just an ultra aggressive night from both of us.
Great defensive effort by this group. I thought the energy, I thought the spirit, the togetherness was exactly what we've talked about over these past 2 days. Their ability to lock in defensively to the game plan, doing a great job tightening up the paint, getting out to shooters on time. But again, then just their ability to play faster, share the ball, move the ball, attack the basket, and then find the open looks.
All right, so there you go. Coach Mosley, Paolo, and Franz all basically sharing the same sentiments. Good win last night. Cory Joseph seemed to help out a lot in the starting lineup at the point guard. Back in there tonight. And we bring in Dan Savage now from OrlandoMagic.com to preview tonight a little bit, to recap what we saw last night. And as always, make sure you guys hit us up in the comments here on the YouTube page. We got a lot firing in here. Usual suspects. What up, Will? And what up, JP Beezer? He said, what up, JP Losario? This is a perfect combo for tonight. Miami lose and the Magic win. We would love to see that. Leo Hellwell said Kojo running point guard is insane work. I think Kojo might be running point guard, for the time being, because he played very well last night on ends of the floor. He alleviates some of the pressure on Paolo and Franz. And as we bring Dan Savage in from OrlandoMagic.com, Dan, you and I have an idea of what Cory Joseph, he's a veteran and he's obviously been sparingly used so far this year. But when you hear your two franchise superstars talk after the game about the difference that the veteran was able to make, getting you organized, the poise he brings it on the defensive end. He might not be as capable as some other younger, more athletic players, but hitting the floor for loose balls, he was an important piece of that game last night and could be moving forward, Dan.
The interesting thing about Cory Joseph is you go from not playing in the rotation to starting back-to-back games on back-to-back nights. So it'll be interesting to see how those legs are tested a little bit. He showed off the high energy with that putback right in before halftime. I thought that was a great energy play. Really, really swung the game and kind of put the nails in the coffin, for New Orleans going into halftime. So I thought that was really impressive. And like you said, it just helps create secondary action for guys like Paolo and Franz not having to handle the load the whole time. You trust Cory Joseph to get the offense going. The Magic played with one of their quicker paces of the season last night, and I don't think it was any coincidence that it was Cory Joseph starting. That was part of that being a catalyst for it.
We previewed it. Cole Anthony's going to be out again tonight, according to Coach Mosley pregame. Still dealing with that toe injury, so he'll miss his second straight game, his third with that toe injury in the last 2 weeks. Contavious Caldwell-Pope, and probably not at his request, is going to be asked to take a rest night tonight. So you're going to have Tristan Da Silva slide into the starting lineup. He'll be making his 36th start of the season tonight. Tristan, we know we're very comfortable and aware of what Tristan can bring. And Cory Joseph makes another start tonight against these Minnesota Timberwolves. And Dan, it's not an understatement. This is one of the hottest teams in the league post All-Star break. They have been absolutely on a tear. They're getting healthy. They got Gobert back. And really the success over the last 6 games, his 6-game winning streak, has coincided with getting Julius Randle back. But let's start with Anthony Edwards, where every scouting report with the Minnesota Timberwolves needs to start. Comes in 5th in the league in scoring, over 27 points a game, just 23 years old on year 5, Dan. And in the month of March, he's starting to shoot the lights out. This is a Timberwolves team, Dan, who in 7 straight games have made 17 or more three-pointers, which to an Orlando Magic fan sounds foreign. That sounds like I'm speaking in an alien language. But Ant in the pick and roll, Ant sending double teams at him. He's going to pick you apart. 41.4% from three-point range in the month of March. He's an absolute load, Dan.
No question. I mean, you look at this Minnesota team, they're 5th in 3 points made per game, 5th in attempts, and 5th in 3-point percentage per out. Do damage from all over the floor. And then on top of that, Ant scoring 27.2 points per game. Like, he sets the tone for that. He's hit 262 three-pointers this season and has done a lot of damage. So he leads the NBA in that regard, and with a league with Steph Curry in it, I think that says a lot.
We're watching footage of Anthony Edwards and the terror he's been wreaking on the league over the course of the last couple of nights. Look, Minnesota comes in at 38-29. They are, as I mentioned, one of the best teams in the league post All-Star break. They come in with the 6th best defense overall. And really going back to the beginning of last season, you're talking about 2 of the premier defenses in the league when you're talking about Minnesota and when you're talking about the Magic. And I think, do we have Anthony Edwards? Is that what I'm hearing?
I think we do, Jake.
Okay, let's go. Let's hear from Anthony Edwards then. Oh, we're just seeing him. That's okay. I'm a radio guy. I'm just sort of piecing this all together. Make sure you guys hit us up in the comments here on the YouTube section. I can't even see that well. I got 2 different laptops going here. I see Rudy Gobert. Rudy Gobert making his return from that back injury. He missed about a month as well. Dan has made a big difference. But really, let's talk about Julius Randle at this point. Obviously the big trade in the offseason.
A lot of turnovers here early. Teams feeling each other out here. Julius knocking down the 3. He really warmed up well, too, before the game. He was making a lot of shots.
And we love what SGA is doing this season.
And obviously OKC has the best record in the Western Conference. Well, Denver did too the year that he didn't win it. When Joel Embiid, it's impossible to stop a man that has that kind of size rolling into the middle of the floor.
Randle will take the 3. Got it!
His warm-up is something special watching it today.
He is not as consistent as it gets. 19.7 rebounds, 5 assists. But the last 6 games, he's averaging up over 6 assists a night. doing a lot of playmaking, and he's been a really good fit, hasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, you get Julius Randle, who you said was unappreciated in the area, and they bring in Cat, who was from my hometown of Piscataway, New Jersey, and was always appreciated by the New York media, even since he was a sixth grader in Shore High School. They were covering him. So bringing a local product in exchange. The crazy part to me is that Julius Randle is, in his 11th year in the NBA, when he was one of those young guys that people were talking about, can the Lakers move to get another prime all-star? So it's just crazy. And that he's developed, made 3 all-star games, has developed as a playmaker. I think that's a thing that the Magic are going to have to worry about tonight. It's not just with the balls in his hand as a scorer. He's a great playmaker as well. Very good in the pick and roll. As Jamal Mosley talked about pregame, the Wolves are the #1 pick and roll team in the NBA, and the 2 guys we've talked about so far, Anthony Edwards, Julius Randle, have had a lot to do with that.
Guys, make sure you hit us up here in the comments. Jake Chapman here with you. I'm in what we call the Juice Box, our studio at the Kia Center, as we get set for the audio/radio call of the Magic Timberwolves. We'll have the pregame at 7:30 on our flagship station here in Central Florida, 96.9 The Game. You can always listen on the Orlando Magic app or on the iHeartRadio app. And if you're outside of the listening area, outside anywhere in the world, you can listen on SiriusXM or you can listen on NBA League Audio Pass as well. He's Stan Savage from OrlandoMagic.com. And then, of course, we'll have the television broadcast tonight. Dante Marcatelli, Jeff Turner on the call at 8 o'clock, FanDuel Sports. And then Kendra Douglas and JT will have the pregame for you beginning at 7:30. Magic game number 4 of this 5-game road trip. It'll be the Cavaliers on Sunday. That's a 1 o'clock tip. That will be a very difficult, obviously, matchup. But the Magic have played pretty well against the Timberwolves over the years, and in that building as well, the second longest road winning streak, Magic won 5 straight, I believe it is, there in Minnesota. So a massive game tonight, and if you can get this one, I think coming out on the road trip, you figured, if 2 and 3 would probably be a successful road trip based on the competition. Getting that win to start the road trip in Milwaukee was certainly a little bit unexpected. You figured a split between the Milwaukee-Houston games would be great, and then you had to get that one last night. Dan, don't you feel like if you can split these next 2 against the Cavs in Minnesota, you'll come back after a 5-game roadie, a really difficult one, feeling pretty good about yourself?
No, you look at it, you have the hottest team in the West, the Timberwolves winning 6 straight, and you have the Cleveland Cavaliers who've probably won, the last 2 months altogether, it feels like, battling off 15 straight there. So you have 2 extremely hot teams right now. And, for the Magic, if you could leave this heavily loaded 5-game road trip, especially after the disappointing homestand you had, with a couple wins, that would be huge.
Let's see. We got some comments coming in here in the YouTube comments section. Duval, our boy, says KCP wrestling is crazy. Guys, I mean, this time of year, by the way, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope has played 64 of the Magic 67 games this year. I mean, you got to hold that guy out, and that's what's happening right now. And this is not with any inside knowledge. I don't think KCP asked to skip this game. I think it is with the home stretch sort of in the front of your mind, we're going to need a fresh KCP. And this is a guy who does not complain about injuries. You can't see it on the floor. He's not limping around and hamming things up, but he has to be banged up more so than just about anybody else on the team. Yes, we're going to miss him tonight, but I think probably long-term, coming down the stretch here, these final 14 games, having a little bit of a refreshed Kentavious Caldwell-Pope will certainly be very helpful. Let's see. What else do we have here? We need to start Gortat. That's not a terrible idea at all. I'm not sure what he's doing, but I'm sure he'd be a solid option for this. And this will be the last comment. Will Dawson says, Jake, how are we going to keep Gobert off the glass tonight? Offensive rebounding, Dan, feels like the theme of this entire road trip. They did a great job last night against New Orleans. And granted, the offense was sort of flowing last night. It didn't really matter if New Orleans was able to grab 11 offensive rebounds for 17 second chance points. It was the reason you lost that game against Houston. That was Steven Adams' dominance on the offensive glass was the big difference. Guys like Randall and guys like Gobert obviously are going to pose problems in that regard. But it's, rebounding is simple. It's a shot goes up, find somebody and hit them. And that's going to fall on Wendell. It's going to fall on Jonathan Isaac, to a lesser extent, Goga Batadze and Paolo Banchero tonight. But it's simple. You find that Frenchman and you put your hip on his hip, and you try to hold them off. That's basically what it comes down to.
You know, it's easier said than done, because you look at guys like Steven Adams, and they can make it extremely difficult. And when you have the reputation of a rebounder like Steven Adams, like Rudy Gobert, you can get away with a little bit more physicality than a lot of the other guys in the NBA. Not saying that they're fouling on a lot of those offensive rebounds, but being a little bit more extra physical than other teams. So, it's going to be a test of wills. The Magic are one of the best, teams in the NBA at limiting second chance points. The Wolves are certainly capable of taking advantage of that area. We talked about the Magic's defense, one of the top defensive teams in the NBA, held the Pelicans under 100 points. Well, they meet a Timberwolves team tonight that, has scored over 100 points in 43 straight games, second longest active streak in the NBA behind the Memphis Grizzlies. So they're a load both on the glass and on the defensive end. So Magic are going to have their workout cut out for them. Can't have any lulls tonight, because those will prove to be costly against this team.
The last question for you, real quick, and then we'll cut out of here. This is a little nugget I found today from March 1st to the end of the regular season. Going back the last 3 years to the beginning of the 21 season, Minnesota has been 43-24 in that stretch of season the last 3 years. They're the second best team late in the year behind the Boston Celtics the last 3 years. What do you attribute that to, their strong finishes throughout the end of the regular season?
I think this time of year is all about the veteran guys you have on there, and then also having a nice combination of guys with young legs. And on top of that, you have to be in contention, because there are some teams that this is the point of the year where they start resting guys or whatever. So it's a tribute to the Wolves consistently as a growing team in the NBA, a growing contender. They've got Ant, who's a machine, wants to play every game and puts on a big show. They've had vets like Conley now, going on top of Gobert. Cat, was there previously as part of that run. So they had a lot of talent and veteran leadership mixed with some of their young guys. So I think that's been a big part of it. And, out west, you cannot have any lapses, because just as quickly over these past couple seasons, you could go from first to eighth with a couple losses. So I think being out west and having to compete with those teams and having standings be so important have all been a factor. But obviously you start with Anthony Edwards out there. He's been a major reason for it.
Yeah, for sure. And he's a guy who seems to figure things out, and his development curve has just been so short. It's a good, big team, obviously. They're strong defensively, and that always seems to work towards the end.
When he's hitting 262 threes and you have to guard him from preventing him from get to the rim also, that makes things a bit challenging.
That can absolutely screw you up. Take a look here at the upcoming schedule. Again, Minnesota tonight, 8 o'clock tip. Pregame 7:30 on the television and radio side. We'll finish up this 5-game roadie with a very tough, but a lot of spotlights on that game. The Cleveland Cavaliers in Cleveland on Sunday. That'll be a 1 o'clock tip pregame at 12:30 on television and radio. And then we'll come back home next the March 19th. I'm not even sure what that day that is. 5 days from now. What is that? That would be Tuesday, Wednesday of next week. It's 7 o'clock as the Rockets come. I go about a game at a time.
You got hooked up on Cleveland, being a Cleveland native. You couldn't see past that.
I couldn't see past that. Exactly. Get home, get the boys home, hopefully with a winning record on this road trip, and then we'll deal with the Houston Rockets. Not excited about dealing with the Houston Rockets again, but we'll deal with those guys somewhere in the middle of next week. It'll be a 7 o'clock tip for sure. I'm Jake Chapman. I feel like this went great. I'm Jake Chapman. He's Dan Savage from OrlandoMagic.com. Big shout out to all the Magic fans for jumping on. Make sure you guys are liking our page on YouTube, and make sure we get a dub tonight. Magic and the Timberwolves coming up. Pre-game in about 12 minutes on the television and radio side, and we'll talk to you guys on Sunday.